Well, hello there, and welcome to this webinar. This webinar is called How to Engage and Motivate Disengaged Learners. Now, if you are familiar with Success Training Academy, you may have gone through our Cert 4 in Training and Assessment course, or you may have gone through any of our other courses. This webinar is a bit of a gift to you as some bonus content, because we know as experienced trainers that one of the hardest things that you will ever have to do is be able to engage learners from all different walks of life, and also, more importantly, keep them engaged. And one of the hardest things that you'll ever have to do is to really bring content to life, but also get people seeing the relevance, seeing how it's going to impact their life and how it's going to be of value to them. Now, if you've gone through any of our courses, particularly our live courses, you will have noticed that there are a number of things that we do at Success Training Academy, particularly in our face-to-face courses, to really hook and engage and keep our students accountable, responsible, and really enjoying the learning process. The purpose of this webinar is to really share some of those secrets with you so that you may be able to use some of those secrets as well as you go out training and being able to really create a powerful learning environment for your learners so that they get the ultimate success that you want for them. Okay. Now, we've obviously been delivering training for a very long time at Success Training Academy. And over that period, we've really looked to enhance the learning experience as much as possible and really create an environment where people learn as much as possible, but also go out and tell other people about the great experiences that they have had with us. Because as a trainer, one of the most important things that you ever create is those ongoing word of mouth referrals for your organization. Okay. Now, let's face it though, in the days of social media that we're in the days of so many different distractions, it is so easy for a learner to get disengaged and to check out of the learning experience, so to speak. And what we need to be very good at as trainers and assessors, but more so trainers, is to be able to set up a really powerful learning environment and to keep people on track. Okay, keep people on track. Now, as we go through this webinar, I highly encourage you to grab a pen and to be taking lots of notes. Okay, we're going to cover such a wide range of different tools and strategies that you can implement pretty much straight away. And even one of these tools and techniques on its own is going to, we guarantee, transform the results that you get in your training environment. There's going to be a lot to take in, and we recommend that you watch this webinar a number of times, okay? Some of the things that we cover are going to be quite common sense. However, what we often find is that the common sense things are not actually implemented. And myself and the other trainers at Success Training Academy, we're pretty good at immediately picking up when things have not been implemented. And when we look at a training session, it's pretty easy to pick when some of the simple things and the subtle things are not being done. And sometimes we could be completely unaware as to how we may actually be creating disengagement in our learners. And we want to really bring that to your conscious awareness so that you'll be able to go out and really get the greatest results from your training sessions. Okay, so some of the things that you hear in this webinar, you may already be doing, but we may be able to share a tweak on something that could be the difference, the 1% difference that gets all the result that you're really looking for. All right, so as we go through the webinar, definitely have a pen and pad ready and be taking lots of notes. Okay, so strap in. You're about to go into a deep dive of how to really engage and motivate your learners. Now, one of the things that we need to really start off thinking about is that fundamentally what we're going to cover in this webinar is all about influence. It's about what? It's about influence. How do we actually influence people to take on different behaviors? Okay, so I want to really encourage you to have that banner or that concept over the content as we go through it. Okay, it's all about influence. Now, if we take a step back, what do we have to have in order to create influence? We have to have massive amounts of levels of trust, okay? So we want to have rapport that leads to trust, that then leads to influence, okay? And underneath all of that, we need to have a conscious awareness of what actually drives our learners and drives our people in the learning environment, okay? So if you're taking notes, definitely write down, it's all about influence. It's all about influence. And in order to create influence, well, we have to know what drives behavior. That's going to be different for different people, but if we can unpack what are the psychological drivers for people, then we are able to get people engaged, motivate them, and keep them engaged, okay? So let's get into the content. All right, so topics that we're going to cover. First of all, reasons that people get disengaged or even disruptive in the learning environment. Okay. Next thing we want to talk about is setting people up for success on their training journey or their learning journey. Next thing, your students' core needs. What are their fundamental needs that if you fulfill those, they will stay engaged and there's a lesser chance that they will get demotivated, so to speak. Okay. And one of the things that is going to tell you how disengaged your learners are is your competency completion rates. How many people are enrolling in your courses and completing? Or how many people are coming to your training sessions and staying till the end or coming back to the next session, all right? Fundamentally, we want to make sure that everybody that enrolls completes and everybody that comes along to your training session comes back, okay? That's just, common sense. That's what we're aiming for, okay? Next thing, dealing with disruptive behavior and turning situations around. Really, really important skill to have. And last that we've got there is using learning personality types to your advantage as a trainer, okay? Now, it's a really important skill to be able to pick out personalities, and personality types typically fall into one of 4 types, and be able to have conscious awareness of those types and be able to use those in how you deliver your content or how you set up your room and how you engage with different people, okay? So knowing all of that, we are very confident that you'll be able to have even more assurance about how to really get the most out of help the learners get the most out of the training environment and keep them engaged, all right? So let's get into the first topic. The first topic is reasons people actually get disengaged, okay? Now, I am sure all of you listening to this webinar at one time in your life have been in a training session and within the first 5 or 10 minutes, you've checked out. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever it might be, okay? And you've checked out for a number of different reasons, but we need to start to identify, well, what are the reasons that students may check out? One of the reasons that we want to tackle this concept straight off the bat is we need to appreciate that we are responsible as trainers for all the results that we create, okay? We are responsible. And we need to be very good at making sure that we are noticing what's happening and being able to take charge of the situation, okay? So let's check out what are some of the reasons that people may get disengaged, okay? And definitely grab a pen and write some of these down. Otherwise, just take a photograph of the slide as you see it on the screens. Great way to take notes, okay? So let's cover off some of the broad reasons. Number 1 could be low motivation for the topic, okay? And that could simply be that there's no internal drive to learn the topic, so to speak. Or on the flip side, maybe they've been forced to be in the session, okay? So it's external reasons that they've come along to the session and they haven't really bought into the actual outcome of the session, okay? So maybe they're there because their boss has forced them to go to the session, and if they don't go, they're going to lose their job, okay? Another one could be, low motivation for the topic. Maybe there's just got no interest in it at all, okay? Next one, maybe they are uncomfortable with another member in the training room, okay? Maybe they've got some conflict, pre-existing conflict or pre-existing arguments or pre-existing tension with another member in the room. Maybe there's even a personality clash with the trainer. I myself, as a learner, once had a situation where I disagreed completely, wholeheartedly with what the trainer had said. And internally, it was a bit of a battle. How do I get over this hump, this challenge? I completely disagree with what they've just said, but I am interested in the topic. How do I stay engaged? How do I get over that? And it was a bit of an ego battle. How do I stay present? Okay. Now, you may find as a trainer, you deliver content in a particular way, you just have a personality that may not completely resonate with every single person in the room. Maybe someone takes offense to something that you say or how you show up or whatever it might be. Okay, and it's completely human, it's particularly normal. We just need to be aware of it, and we may not be able to prevent it all the time, so to speak, okay? But we need to be aware that that is one reason that people may get disengaged. Another one, people may feel overwhelmed or confused. And as soon as that happens, people may spit the dummy, so to speak, or they may check out. Or if they don't feel that in that moment of overwhelm or confusion that the support will be there, maybe they're just going to go, oh, it's all too hard. I'm going to blame, I'm going to shame, I'm going to quit. Okay. Next one. Maybe they want attention. Okay. And maybe they are somebody that's actually found it too hard, they've got low motivation, whatever it might be, and they just want attention and they want everybody else on the same page as them. Okay. Distractions from the outside world. Certainly if somebody's got things going on at home or in the workplace, it can be quite hard for them to stay present. Okay. Next one, maybe similarly they are having a bad day and things are going on. Maybe they won't take it out on other people. Okay, it happens. Prior learning biases around the topic. Okay, now that's all about maybe in the past when they were learning with a different trainer, they had a really negative experience, or they've seen that topic as an irrelevant topic, and maybe they bring those biases into the training room. Okay. Or maybe they've learned it another way and they're really stuck in that way and they don't have an open mind about learning different strategies or mindsets or different perspectives on how to do things. Okay. Next one, not being taught in a way that meets their learning style. Okay. So we need to be aware as trainers that everybody does have their own learning style, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and we need to appreciate that as a trainer, we typically default to our own learning style. But we need to appreciate that everybody is not us and we are not everybody else. So the better we can get at delivering in a very balanced fashion, visually, auditory, kinesthetically, auditorially, and visually, and just being able to cycle through those different methods of teaching in a very balanced way, there is a higher probability we're going to keep everybody engaged. We all know it. We all keep hearing about it. At the end of the day, though, we need to take personal responsibility, knowing that not everybody in our room is all visual or all kinesthetic or all auditory. We need to be able to present our content in a balanced fashion. Okay, next reason people could get disengaged is frustrated over their own progress. All right, that could definitely create feelings of anxiety or unpleasantness, and from that, people could check out of the program, may not want to come to the next session. Okay, may even feel some animosity or frustration, negativity towards the trainer, the program, the RTO, whatever it might be. Okay. Next one, testing the trainer's resolve and authority. Okay. So this one's really about how students that may want to come in and have a belief that the trainer doesn't really know what they're talking about, or that the content that the trainer is delivering may not be 100% valid or credible, so to speak. And this can happen where you may get students that are particularly experienced in a particular area. And if the trainer isn't able to stand up to that challenge, then the students may actually check out and go, nah, the trainer doesn't know what they're talking about. It's not worth my time. Okay. Now the last one here is, I think, is the most important one that we all really have great awareness around, is no longer see the relevance. And if a learner is no longer able to see the relevance, then they're going to check out. In other webinars that Success Training Academy have produced, we talk about the fundamentals of creating interest. And one of those fundamentals is relevance to the content. And we simply mean that there is a personal connection to the content. And if somebody doesn't have a sense of personal connection to the content, a reason for listening, then they are going to check out. Okay, so it's really important that we develop our ability to contextualize our content as much as possible. Okay, and the more you can personalize it, the more people are going to stay engaged. Okay. Now, having said all that, of course, as we all know, some level of disengagement or disruption is going to happen. Okay. Now, Tuckman was a researcher, and he researched the different stages that a team or group will go through as they are developing. Okay. And you can certainly do further research on this. Just go to Google and type in Tuckman and team building stages or team development, and you'll come across these 4 different stages or 5 stages, and you'll start to get a sense of how a group will develop and how they will function as they go through a life cycle. So they will start out by forming, storming, norming, performing. Last of all, the bonus one that we've got there is mourning. Okay, so forming is essentially when the group comes together and they're starting to get to know each other. Okay, and people are still a little bit hesitant about who each other are and how it's all going to play out. Okay, so that's when they're just meeting each other and discovering what's in the learning environment. Okay, so storming is once they have come together, there may be a little bit of disruption as they are trying to work out, well, what's going to be acceptable, what's normal in this learning environment. What are the expectations? Okay, so you may get people that are playing up a little bit in the beginning, and this is certainly where we need to set expectations very clearly, and we need to be able to set the learning parameters. Okay, next one, norming, is where again they are still understanding what will be acceptable as normal. Okay, and then last of all, we've got performing. Okay, and performing is the space where people are coming together and operating at their very, very best. Okay, so last stage there is mourning, and simply include that, and you'll find that some different researchers include this one, because at the mourning stage, this is where it's all over. Okay, so this is where the group is going to disband, so to speak, and for example, it would be the end of a course, or it's the goodbye stage, so to speak. Okay, but we need to appreciate that all groups are going to go through the forming, storming, and the storming stage is where people act up. The norming is where people are going to get a little bit more used to what is normal and what's acceptable. And then performing is when people are literally performing at their very best. But if we're not aware of these stages that groups go through, we may get very frustrated, particularly in the storming and norming stage. Okay, and we may constantly think that there's something wrong with our learners, but the more we can appreciate the stages that the groups go through, we can just go, all right, great. Right now, they are in the storming stage, or right now, they're in the norming stage. Okay, and I just need to keep working with them to get to the performing stage. Okay, so that leads on to the next most important thing, which is the framework of the learning environment makes all the difference. Okay, and this really comes to deciding in your mind ahead of time, what do you believe is acceptable, not acceptable, and what do you consider will be the parameters that you will set around how the course will go. Okay. And really the way that you could think about this is just, what are your expectations that you're going to set implement, and hold for your learners, okay? So, up till now, we've covered the reasons people may disengage. We've looked at the different stages that groups go through. And last of all, if you're taking notes, definitely write down the concept of it's all about the framework that you set up. Okay. Now, I quickly want to touch on your students' core needs, because when you can have these needs top of mind, you will find that you are better able to actually meet those needs, okay? So I definitely recommend that you grab a pen and write these needs down, okay? So yes, you'll be able to do all your research about adult learning theories and all those different things. What I've discovered though, is that when we actually tackle these things that are on the slide in front of us, we are really going to ignite that internal motivation or that intrinsic motivation. And people are going to feel like you as a trainer really do care and your organization really cares, okay? So how do we hook people, get them engaged? Well, we need to be able to meet learners' needs. So the first thing we want to do is we want to definitely give our learners lots of acknowledgement. Okay, so let's read through the list. We've got acknowledgement, we got respect, we got involvement. We want to meet their need of a big, juicy why. We want to help them create a big, clear, bright vision. Okay. We want to create a sense that you and your organization care. We want to give powerful feedback in all circumstances. And we want to give them time and space to make mistakes. And even after they make mistakes, we want to reaffirm what they did well. Okay. And we certainly want to set clear expectations. Okay, now certainly I'm going to cover it a lot more later on. However, I just want to really touch on the idea of acknowledgement, because as people, as humans, whenever we are doing something in a learning environment, we are put in a place where we're a little bit uncertain. And if we can be acknowledged for taking small steps, then we feel like we matter and we feel like what we are doing is the right thing to do. Okay, so if you can acknowledge your learners, even for showing up, acknowledge them for enrolling in the course, acknowledging them for bringing along their materials, acknowledging them for supporting each other, acknowledging them for as many things as you can do, or acknowledging them for as many things as you can notice in your learners, they are going to have that need met, and they may not even realize that it's going to be an important need for them. But I will tell you now, the more they feel acknowledged, the more they're going to come back. Because I've found so many times, even myself as a learner, when I felt acknowledged, I felt even more hooked, engaged, and I've wanted to be there. And that's the critical thing that we need to really take on as trainers. You want to make your learners feel good. And as trainers, we need to realize that training, it's both an art and a science. It's an art in the sense that we're creating a positive learning environment. And then it's a science in the sense that we need to lay the groundwork and we need to use appropriate academic structures in order for the information to reach the unconscious mind and be learned at the deepest levels. Okay, respect. We certainly want to respect our learners and encourage them to share their opinions, and we want to treat them with respect in how we talk to them and different ways that we may behave, because at the end of the day, we are dealing with adult learners, okay? Involvement. We definitely want to get our learners involved to a degree, okay? The key thing with involvement, and this is the advanced strategy, this is the ninja technique, okay? With involvement, we want to be giving them options and choices, but options and choices that we decide. Okay, so that's a way that we can give them the illusion of involvement, but the more involvement we can give them, the more they are going to want to be in the learning environment and feel like their need is being met. Okay, so if you're taking notes, definitely write down involvement. In order to create it, give choice and options. Give choice and options. Next one, we've got a big juicy why, and we'll talk about that later on. Big, clear, bright vision, really, really important, because if they've got a big, bright vision, then they can see beyond the learning environment, and they will want to come back because they're brought into not just having the piece of paper, but what the piece of paper will give them. Okay. Now, a sense that you and your organization care. Well, I invite and encourage you to think, well, how can we show that we care beyond the average? What I mean by that is maybe when all the learners show up, maybe you give them a bottle of water. Maybe you actually give them a voucher for JB Hi-Fi or a local shopping center. Maybe you give them a personal card that says, thank you so much for enrolling. Maybe you give them rewards or bonuses or water bottles, whatever it may be, that you can show a sense that you care above and beyond just taking their money. Okay. Next one, we've got the powerful feedback in all circumstances. Now, as a learner, everybody wants to understand not just what they're doing is acceptable, but why is it acceptable, or why is it unacceptable? So if you're giving feedback such as, good job, well done, well, that's probably not going to excite a learner very much at all. You need to be as specific as you can. So good job, well done, because you completed that task really accurately, and that item just there, you nailed it, and you wrote the exact details that we needed to see. Okay, maybe it is a group activity and you have a standout student. Tell them why they are standout. Don't just say you're a standout student. Okay, if on the other hand somebody does something and they don't exactly get it right, equally give them some feedback and be specific. So the way that you did that, you missed the mark because you didn't include XYZ, XYZ. And having said that though, the effort that you put in was fantastic. So next time you do it, just include more of this and you'll get an even better result. Okay, so make your feedback as powerful as possible. What does powerful mean? It means specific and affirming of your learners. Next thing, time and space to make mistakes. It is really important that you allow your learners to make mistakes, and by doing so, it gives them the unconscious permission to show up and have a go. Show up and have a go. And if you can actually share in the very early stages how you as a learner one day many years ago, you made so many mistakes, it allows your learners to feel comfortable to make mistakes as well. Okay, as I said, clear expectations. The more that learners are comfortable with what may be happening, then the more they're going to feel comfortable, so to speak. Okay. Now, clear expectations about what is required in terms of academic success, but also clear expectations about behavior is going to make them feel safer on the unconscious level. Okay. So, although that's quite a, how do I put it, a simple slide, there is so much to understanding your students' core needs. And the more that you can meet those needs, the more they're going to come back because they feel like they're in a safe learning environment and they are seen, heard, and appreciated. Okay. So, next thing, topic 3, setting people up for success. And if you can master this section, then you are going to see radically improved results in how your learners interact with you in your training sessions. And we can break this down into some fundamental things, but if you've been to any of the face-to-face training sessions with Success Training Academy, you may actually recognize some of the things that we cover, particularly in this session, okay? And I want to remind you or really reinforce the idea that if you get this right, a lot of the other stuff just takes care of itself. If you get this right, People will stay engaged with you and will be hooked on your words until the very end of your session. Set people up for success well, and a lot of the other issues, challenges just don't happen, like people not coming back or like people not being motivated, whatever it might be. Okay, so setting people up for success is critical. Please grab a pen and write some of these things down. Okay, so step for success, I've broken it down into 4 core things. Okay, number 1, you need to have the right mindset, because if your mindset is correct, then you'll be able to look at circumstances in the right way as a trainer. Next, you must be intentional with the learning environment that you set up. Okay. Number 3, you must set the right expectations. Okay. And last of all, you must be able to help your learners own their learning journey. Okay. And if you don't have the right mindset, then you may take things personally, or you may wonder, why does the same thing keep happening and all of that. Learning environment is critically important, but if you know how to do that, then you'll be able to create predictable results. Right expectations makes the learners feel safe, secure, and willing and ready to learn. Okay, number 4, you need to help your learners own their learning experience. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, adult learners can sometimes come in with the expectations that the trainer will do the learning for them. But when we can flip that and help the learner realize that we are the guide along the journey, but we're not going to do the journey for them, and we put the onus responsibility back on the learners, then really powerful things open up. Because as we all know, there's 4 roles that a trainer will undertake or step into. So the trainer will become a instructor, they'll become a facilitator, they'll become a coach, and they'll become a mentor. But a trainer cannot do the learning for the learners. The trainer must be the guide along the journey, and along that journey they're still going to take on those 4 different roles, but we don't do the learning for the learners. We simply guide and facilitate and coach and mentor them along the way. Okay, so it's really important that we help them own their own learning journey. All right, so let's tackle the first one, having the right mindset as a trainer. Okay, the first question we want to ask ourselves, and these are a bunch of questions that we can ask ourselves before we step into the training room. Okay, and some questions I really encourage you to reflect on before you actually start planning your training session, or even as you're planning your training session. These are some powerful questions, right? But you've got to get these things clear in your mind before you start speaking or training. So number 1 is, what expectations do I want to set? All right, do I want to set the expectations that people turn up on time? Do I set the expectations that people are going to be motivated, people are going to be interested? Do I set the expectation that people are going to complete their assessments? In life, we get whatever we expect, okay? And I'm not going to go too esoteric on that, but ultimately, people will always rise to the expectations we set, all right? So it's very clear in our mind, what expectations are we willing to tolerate or not tolerate, okay? Next, what is the biggest outcome that I want to achieve in this session? And the clearer you can get on your outcome, the higher the probability that your learners are actually going to achieve that outcome. Next, what is the biggest benefit that students will achieve by coming along? Powerful question, isn't it? Because when we can actually get that clear in our minds, then we can articulate that to the learners as well. We can have that top of mind, and we can start to see some real value and justification for them being there and for us doing whatever we do in the training room. Okay, but if you don't have it clear in your mind, then you may just treat it as, oh, I'm just delivering a training session. Well, no. What is the biggest benefit that your learners are going to get from you actually delivering your content? Next, what will be the consequences if they don't achieve their outcome? Another really powerful question. And if you can sit there and actually answer that question, you're going to be really motivated, juiced up, really energized, and really want to help those learners. How do I want my learners to feel throughout my session? Another really powerful question. Do you want your learners to feel motivated? Do you want your learners to feel agitated, annoyed? Well, probably not. So probably you'd want to think, okay, well, how do I create an environment where they feel motivated, where they feel acknowledged? How do I reaffirm the great feelings? Okay. And we need to be aware that we are responsible, strongly responsible for how our learners actually feel by what we say and how we set up activities. Next one, how many ways can I acknowledge effort versus results? A really powerful question, because so many times in our education system, it can often have what we've experienced possibly is environments where we've only ever been affirmed if we got a great result. But in order to motivate adults, we need to start to really focus on acknowledging effort no matter the result. Because when we can keep affirming great efforts, great results come from that. Okay. And we need to create an environment where it's okay to fail. And the more you do that, the more people are going to be willing to have a go and get closer and closer to the result that both you as a trainer want and they want as well. Last of all, how can I reinforce desired behaviors? Okay. Really, really important question to ask yourself, because if you focus on the negative, you're going to get more of the negative, right? But if you focus on what you want in terms of behavior, you're going to get more of that. Okay. And we'll talk about strategies to do that in coming slides. Okay. So next critical thing is setting up your environment. Okay, so the first thing I've got up there is acknowledge your learners for showing up. And that may be a little bit, you may think, unnecessary. However, when you actually acknowledge them very early on in the piece, they actually start to have the warm and fuzzy feelings. They start to realize, wow, this learning environment is different. They are not taking me for granted, which is a really important thing. So one of the things I love to say at the very beginning of a training session is, before we go any further, I just want to say a huge thank you to each and every one of you, because I know for a fact that this training session, it didn't start now. It started the moment you made the decision to enroll, because every single one of you had to do some rearranging of your schedule. Maybe you had to take some time off from work to be here today, or to be on this Zoom or this webinar. And I just really want to encourage you that we acknowledge all of that. We really appreciate you for showing up and choosing us as the RTO that you learn with. So thank you so much for that. Also, please turn to the person next to you and tell them, thank you for showing up. Okay. And I really want to expand on that acknowledgement as much as possible. Okay. Next thing in terms of setting up a positive learning environment is we want to set the rules of engagement and get agreement, okay? And I'll talk more about how to do that later on. But we want to set the rules of the learning environment, and essentially, what are we going to tolerate? What are we not going to tolerate? But we have to have everyone on the same page, okay? Because you don't want people speaking out of turn, or phones going off, or people turning up late, okay? And my fundamental belief, after having taught in the vet sector for over a decade now, is that if I get disruptive behavior, or if I get people not playing along or playing to my rules, I see that as a sign that I have set weak expectations. Okay. And the behavior you get back from your learners is a reflection of the expectations you set. Okay. Now, next thing there about creating a positive learning environment is create the space for mistakes to be made. Really, really important, okay? Next, create a space for fun and vulnerability early on, okay? And you can certainly do that by, self-deprecating humor, or sharing different things about yourself, but also having a little bit of a laugh, having fun, creating fun activities, okay? Having said that, later on we are going to talk about holding the space for a learning environment. Really, really important, okay? Using appropriate icebreakers. Now, we've probably all been in learning environments where icebreakers have been done and been successful to varying levels. The thing I will say about an icebreaker is that it must be positive and it must create comfort in the learners. So an icebreaker that says something like go and meet someone, find out something interesting about them and why they've come along to the course is not really a great icebreaker, okay? Shock horror, no, it's not, okay? Because it doesn't create those feelings of positivity and comfort in a learner. All right, so you really want to be strategic in your icebreakers so that you make sure that people are feeling positive as they're going through it. And ideally, it also relates to the topic, okay? So any kind of question such as, what inspired you to get into your current role, or what do you love about what you do at the moment, or what are you excited about learning from this session, are always going to be more effective icebreakers, okay? Next thing, creating assessment buddies. Okay, now you may be unfamiliar with what an assessment buddy is, but essentially it's putting people in pairs or groups and simply creating a frame where they are going to check in with each other and they're going to support each other along the learning journey. This is a really powerful technique because it takes a lot of the onus off the trainer to constantly be checking in on people, and you have a secondary support mechanism there, okay? How do you set it up? All right, everyone stand up, go and find a pair, and I want you to repeat after me. I promise that I will hold you accountable. And I will check in with you, to see how you are going on your assessments, And you have a little bit of fun with it, but you get two people to agree to be assessment buddies and to support each other and to check in on each other, all right? It's a really great technique. I use it all the time, and it means that you have extra support in the room already set up, and people are already feeling a sense of, wow, multiple people in this room care about me and are going to take an interest in my progress. Okay. Last one there is create a space for students to self-acknowledge. Okay. So one great thing that you could do is at the beginning of each day, get students to write down what did they do very well on the previous day. Or at the end of day one or session one, they simply write down, today I acknowledge myself for doing XYZ really well, okay? And the more you can build in those moments of getting students to acknowledge themselves, the more they're going to feel like it is a positive learning atmosphere, okay? So make sure that you adopt some of these things from the setting up a positive learning environment. Okay. Next thing we want to do is set the right expectations. Okay. So you do want to tell them what will be achieved in the session, in the course, and post-course. You want to lay that out for them. All right. Give them some clarity. Okay. And that's going to keep them certainly engaged because they'll be able to track their progress. Because if somebody can track it, then they know that they are on the, they have a sense of, how do we put this? A sense of certainty. And when someone can feel certain about something, there's going to be less anxiety, less stress, and they're going to be able to stay on the path. If somebody doesn't have a roadmap of where they're going and how they're getting there, they will fall off the path quite easily. Okay. Next thing, tell them the support that will be provided and remind them that it's up to them to access it. Okay. Again, we want to reinforce that it's their responsibility, it's their journey, but the RTO is 100% there for them when they need it. Okay. Now, next thing, number 4, is helping your students own their learning journey, as we've talked about. Now, what I'm showing you here is 6 powerful questions. 6 powerful questions that I love to get all of my learners to answer at the very beginning, or at least 50, maybe say 10 or 15 minutes into a training session. And the earlier you can get your learners answering these questions, the more powerful it is. Because many times learners are going to come to your session and they're starting out a course. They may have limited clarity around what they actually want to achieve, why they're there, what they're going to get out of it. And the more we can help them get clarity in the very beginning, the better the training session's going to go and the more they're going to get engaged. So let's look at some of these questions. And I highly, 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 highly insist that you use these questions because they're so powerful. They will literally transform the mindset of your learners. And the more time you spend on this, the more it's going to pay dividends as people progress through your course. And the other cool thing about this is that you get learners to write down the answers and keep the answers with them at all times, all right? So first question that we've got here is, what would be the ideal outcome that you would love to achieve by completing this course, okay? So the purpose of this question is to get them to think beyond the session, beyond getting the certificate, beyond just learning, so to speak. So for example, it's not about getting the piece of paper, it's, well, would you like a promotion? Would you like a salary increase? Would you like to change jobs? Would you like to increase the performance of your team? Would it be that you'd like to get your boss off your back? What would it be that would be the ideal outcome? And you really want to capture that from your learners as much as you can. Okay? And you want to encourage them to be as specific as possible when they write that down. Number 2, what are your biggest challenges that you will think you will face as up? So let's imagine somebody is going into the childcare industry and they want to be a childcare educator or the childcare, someone that works in the childcare industry or field. And if you can get them writing down what do they think will be the biggest challenges, that's going to bring that top of mind for them, and they'll be able to be a lot more specific in how they are going to travel along their learning journey and what kind of challenges or weaknesses that they may direct their unconscious mind towards solving, okay? Number 3, what top 3 things would you love to learn as you go through this course? Okay. Now, if they write down those top 3 things and then they share those things with you as a trainer, guess what? That gives you some secret information that you can make sure that you include in your course to really keep them hooked and engaged. Okay. Number 4, what do you think will be your biggest challenge doing this course? Really, really important. So for example, they may say, oh, well, being focused and maybe staying on track with my assessments will be a bit of a challenge, okay? Question 5 there, how will you mitigate that? Well, that's really putting it back on them and creating a solution to the problem that they have identified, okay? They preemptively identified that, okay? Number 6, what would have to happen for this to be one of the best courses you have ever attended? The presuppositions in that question are so powerful, and again, it puts it back on them. So they may say, well, one of the best things that would have to happen is that maybe I get to be involved a lot, I get to do group activities, I get to have many opportunities to ask questions, whatever it might be. But hopefully you can see the power of this information that's extrapolated. And then what I love to do is get learners actually sharing with each other the answers that I've come up with. And then I love them to actually share it with the entire group so that I can hear it, okay? And I really want to capture definitely the answer for number 1 and number 3 and number 6, okay? Number 1, 3, and number 6. That is the golden information that I want to hear as a trainer. And if you can hear that, and if you can make notes of that, it's going to be really powerful and helpful for you as well. Okay, so as you can see at the bottom of the slide there, the key ingredient is sharing it with others and creating accountability. Okay, so next thing that we want to look at is helping your learners build their vision and their why. okay? It's a really, really powerful technique to keep them engaged and keep them in the learning paradigm, so to speak. Because at the end of the day, nobody really comes to learn something because they want to learn about the information. There is normally something beyond the information that they are trying to create, and that's typically their vision. So let's say somebody is enrolling in a childcare course. Okay, again, they may be interested in the theories about, how to interact with kids and, how to set up play environments and different things. But normally it's because they've got a bigger vision for themselves and they've got a why. Okay, now the bigger vision could be working at a childcare center. Okay, and the why is because they really love to support kids learning, and they just love to interact with kids. Okay, so what we need to be very good at is helping our learners identify what that vision looks like. Okay, and going back to question one, what would be the ideal outcome for your learning, so to speak? That can really help to start shaping that vision. Okay, and you may even want to create a vision segment where you say, all right, cool, what is your vision for once you've completed this qualification? Okay, and maybe let's say somebody wants to become a paramedic, or even a car, somebody working in as a plumber, or a car, or construction, or even leadership and management. Okay, so you want to maybe get people to have a little bit of a vision creation time where they imagine what's it going to be like, and who do they want to interact with after they've completed the course? What would the ideal vision look like for them? And then get even more specific. Say, why is that important to you? What do you want to achieve by doing that? And we need to appreciate that if people can't see themselves doing it, they will never do it. Okay. And the more that we can blow up that vision and make it really bright, colorful, engaging for the learners, the more they're going to stick around and be part of the learning process. Okay. Now, visions will certainly change a little bit, and sometimes people will just go, "No, I've just decided X, Y, Z, career options not for me anymore." That's totally fine, but we need to aid our learners by helping them really develop a big and bright and colorful vision. Okay, and definitely those questions that I just showed you will help you do that, and you definitely want to keep coming back to those questions anytime learners hit a speed bump, so to speak. Okay. Now, let's tackle topic number 4, which is dealing with difficult behavior. Okay. Now, we need to appreciate, as I've already said, that any behavior we get back is a representation of the expectations that we have set or not set, so to speak. Okay. And the better you can get at dealing with difficult behavior, the more you're going to have learners respect you and want to come back to your sessions quite regularly. Okay, so this is a critical skill to master, and I definitely recommend that you implement all the things that we're about to go through, because all this in combination really will revolutionize and transform the results that you get in the training room. And these principles I'm about to share, we here at Success Training Academy operate by, and very quickly you will start to see the positive results that you get, but also you'll start to see where things are going wrong because they're not being implemented. Okay, so let's get into it. Really exciting content we're about to go through. Okay, the first one that we've got there is number 1, be the behavior you want to see. Okay, be the behavior that you want to see. Definitely grab a pen and write that down. Number 1 thing, all right? Because you cannot expect your learners to do what you are unwilling to do. So for example, if you want your learners to be motivated, well, you have to be motivated. If you want your learners to come on time, well, you have to come on time. If you want your learners to be fully involved, you have to be fully involved. okay? I mean, this is pretty much common sense, but we need to set the framework that if you want a particular behavior, you must first model it, okay? Second, number two, is set the ground rules, aka rules of engagement. And we're going to talk about how to do that in a very specific and powerful way. It's going to pretty much guarantee that the students are going to obey it, so to speak. Okay, number three, ask the tactical check-in questions. And definitely grab a pen and write those down. So okay, and then confused. All right, just remind yourself, okay and confused. Number four is hold people to their word. Okay, and number five is ask to leave. Ask to leave. Okay, so first one is be the behavior you want to see. Number two is set the ground rules, and we'll talk about that. Number three is ask the tactical check-in questions. Number four is hold people to their word. And number five is ask to leave, okay? So if you want it, you must first be it, okay? Again, really, really important that, number one, be the behavior you want to see, all right? We need to be able to model it, just as I've got on the screen here. It's a little bit of a weird image, but I really want to encourage the idea that if you're not seeing it, just take a step back and go, am I modeling it? Yes or no? If I am, I'll need to model more of it. If I'm not, well, maybe I need to, going forward, model it even more. Next thing I want to encourage you to think about, though, is that you ultimately determine the tone and the atmosphere for your learning environment, okay? So definitely grab a pen and write this down. So you control the tone, you control the tone, you control the tone. What I mean by that is early on in the session, you determine how people will react by your reactions. Okay, so for example, if people very early on in the session are cracking jokes or clowning up or, being disruptive, if you also laugh or if you crack jokes, then it is going to set a tone where anything is acceptable. But if you have learners that crack jokes, but you yourself are able to hold the space and not react, it is going to go so far in setting the tone of what is acceptable in the learning environment and what's not. Certainly you want to smile and, be positive, but how you react will determine what's acceptable and what's not. If you have somebody that wants to attack you and you personally react, well, again, that may then cause other people to personally attack you. But if you can hold the space, so to speak, and set the tone of what you will accept and what you will not accept, you are going to create a great positive learning environment, okay? So I really want to encourage you, be the behavior you want to see, and also know that you set the tone by how you react to different things, okay? Really important to remember. Now, next part of it is setting the ground rules, but doing it with magic, okay? Now, in every single one of my sessions and at Success Training Academy, we always set the ground rules. And we do it in a very positive and empowering way so that everybody buys into the ground rules and behaves in a way that we all benefit from, okay? So we'll talk a lot in a moment about what not to do with ground rules, but generally as a trainer, you want to have your list of 10 to 12 ground rules that you always operate from in every training session, okay? Now, here are some of mine. You can certainly borrow them if you'd like, but number one is participate fully. Number two, be on time. Next, one person speaks at a time. Next, phones on quiet. Next, come back from breaks on time. Next, take calls outside. Next, have fun. Next, respect other people's views. Next, bring all materials to class. Next, ask questions but trust the trainer. Next, don't read ahead. Next, take personal responsibility for all matters. Last of all, give grace, okay? Now, What I really want to encourage all of you to do is understand the importance of the magic word. So down the bottom of the slide there, you can see the magic word. Fill in a blank. It is the word because. Because. Definitely write that down. That is the magic that makes it all come together. So anytime you set a ground rule, you definitely want to include the reason for it, okay? Now, how did I come up with these ground rules, or how do you come up with yours? Start to make a list of all the behaviors that you think would be unacceptable for you, okay? So for example, take calls outside. I have once had a student that took a call in a class while I was actually delivering content. Okay, so for me, unconsciously or consciously, I made a decision. I didn't want that ever happening again, so I've made a ground rule around that. Okay, be on time. I definitely, had situations where people turned up late or different things, so I definitely created a ground rule on that. But let's come back to the magic. The magic, because okay. So let's tackle the first one, participate fully. I'm always going to include that magic word because, and I'm always going to create the ground rule in a way that actually supports the learner and gives them a reason to buy into it. For example, participate fully because the more you participate, the more you'll be able to get competent and be able to complete your course even quicker. Next one, be on time, because we are going to cover a lot of information. It's going to really help you out with your assessment. And if you're not on time, you may miss out on things. Okay, let's pick the phones on quiet. Phones on quiet because we all know that when phones ring, it can be distracting and people may actually miss out on information. Okay, another one, have fun. Have fun because we all know back in high school, the more times we were actually having fun, the more we were probably actually learning from that subject. And we were not having fun, we were probably learning a lot less, okay? Give grace, okay? Give grace because we all know it's, we're in a learning environment and we all want to have the time and space to be able to make mistakes. And we all want to be kind to each other as we go through that journey, okay? And the critical thing is that you get everybody to write the ground rules down, and you definitely want to get them to write it down, and at the end of it, get them to agree to those ground rules, okay? Really, really important. So the more that they are agreeing to that, the more everybody's going to be on the same page, okay? So ground rules are critical, and what not to do with ground rules. So number one, you never want to let your learners set the ground rules. Just don't do it. It's a bad idea because A, it takes up time, but B, it also puts the control back in their hands, and it's very hard to get that control back. Number two, not provide a reason or justification, okay? Because if you don't provide a reason, then all they hear is it's my way or the highway, okay? So you definitely want to get buy-in, but how do we do that? We use the magic word of because. Number three, not use them and we make assumptions, okay? So anytime that you get bad behavior, it's often because we've made an assumption that of course everybody would think that a particular thing is common courtesy. Well, unless you set the ground rule, yeah, you may luck out with that. Okay. Number four, take away all autonomy. You don't want to do that. So, for example, one of the things that we love to do at Success Training Academy is we say phones on quiet. And if you get a call and it is super urgent, feel free to take it. Obviously, take it outside. But we don't say you must turn your phone off completely and you're not allowed to answer any calls because that would take away all autonomy, okay? And people may feel controlled or manipulated by that, okay? So you definitely want to give them some autonomy and you don't want to take away all choices, okay? So I say be reasonable with your guidelines. Okay. Next thing, key things to do. As I said, get students to write them down. Next, get students to read them aloud to each other in pairs. Okay, so I'll often get learners to stand up and read the ground rules to each other, and that cements them in at a deeper level. Next, get the entire group to agree to them. Okay, and last of all, if you have a new person join halfway through your course or through your session, make sure that you go over the ground rules and the rules of engagement with that new person. Okay, that's critically important to do. Okay, so ground rules, make sure you set them, make sure everyone agrees to them, make sure you use the magic word of because. Okay. So now let's tackle the last topic, which is topic 5, using learner personality types to your advantage as a trainer. Now, the information that we're about to go through will transform your training. I say this without hesitation at all. After having been in the vet sector for over a decade now, I know for a fact, knowing this has made me so much more confident in the training space and being able to help me understand why learners behave the way they do and use that to my advantage to help them get better outcomes. Okay. Please understand that we're not looking at manipulating people, but we are looking at helping them work as best as possible with different people, because we all have different personalities. Okay? And this goes a little bit beyond learning styles. So yes, we all know learning styles: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, auditory, digital, all of that. Okay. However, this is looking at the 4 personality types that Honey and Mumford talk about. And what you're going to hear here is a little bit of a slight tweak on, excuse me, on the Honey and Mumford information. However, when you know the 4 personality types, you're much more able to use them strategically in how you set up activities, what activities that you give them, and how you pair people up in groups. Okay. So definitely pay attention to this stuff that we're about to go through, because knowing this has helped me understand why mistakes that I've made have happened. Okay. So, for example, in the past, maybe I've yelled at someone for the wrong reasons. Maybe I've got frustrated by particular personality types because I just didn't understand why they were behaving particular ways. And I also didn't understand, well, how do I use that behavior to my learning advantage for everybody else in the room? Okay. And one of the big things that we need to remind ourselves or be aware of is that no personality is better or worse than another. And one key takeaway from this segment is that everybody is perfect and beautiful, and everybody is valuable in the learning and work context. I'll say it again. Everybody is perfect and beautiful and valuable in the learning context, and we can all learn from each other. So let's check out this model that we've got, which is the PART model. And I invite and encourage you to do extra research on this and check it out. This is my ultimate interpretation of it, and how you can best use it to your advantage. Okay, so there are 4 major learning types that you're going to come across, or learning behaviors, so to speak. Okay, and if you want to find out more information, you can certainly do the online quiz and find out what you may be more of. Every one of us has all of these in us, so PART. However, you are going to find that you have stronger amounts of one than the other, or than the other types there. Okay, so we've got 4, which is, and now what do they stand for? So the P stands for pragmatist. Okay, P stands for pragmatist. A stands for activist. R stands for reflector. T stands for theorist. Okay, so we've got pragmatist, activist, reflector, and theorist. Okay, so let's jump into the 4 types. So pragmatist, they like to jump in, have a go, and they are less concerned about making mistakes. And they love to take a leadership role, and they love to get things done. Now, you're going to find that pragmatist often finishes tasks quicker than other people. They will often be the most enthusiastic, and they'll be a little bit more talkative than others. but they will just love to jump in, contribute, and support the learning experience for people. Okay, pragmatists. Now, they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses and all of that. Okay, but everybody is perfect and beautiful and valuable within the learning environment. Okay, now next one that we've got there is the activist. Okay, now I've just taken the liberty of putting the picture that we've got there. However, it's just to reinforce the idea that um, the activist type, they love to challenge the boundary conditions of the learning environment, and they will often play the devil's advocate, or they will often challenge the trainer or challenge other people. Okay, they will challenge the information presented, and they are often great at seeing the holes in an argument. Okay, so Gordon Ramsay, as we can see there, he's the kind of person that may challenge your opinion, challenge your thinking. Okay, now a opinionated person, fantastic. We love them, we need them, and they're going to find the holes in an argument. Okay, so activists, very valuable. We all need them. Okay, next type that we've got there is a reflector. Now, a reflector, these people learn by observing and thinking about what happened. They may avoid leaping in and prefer to watch from the sidelines. Okay, and they prefer to stand back and review and view experiences from a number of different perspectives. They like to collect data and taking the time to work towards an appropriate conclusion. You may find that they're a little bit more reserved and shy. Okay, pragmatists and activists, on the other hand, are a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more outspoken. The reflector will be a lot more quiet and will sit there and take everything in. So one of the mistakes that we can make is that we may look at a reflector and think that they are not participating. However, they are taking everything in. Once they feel comfortable, then they're going to jump in, and once they feel comfortable of what the expectations may be and feel safe, then they're going to get involved. Theorist. Now, a theorist is somebody that likes to understand the theory behind the actions or the theory behind the theory. They need models, concepts, and facts in order to engage in the learning process. Okay. They prefer to analyze and synthesize and draw new information into systematic and logical theory. And they have to understand all the details, the data, the statistics, and all the history behind something. They also definitely want to understand why they might be learning something as well. Okay. So, as I've gone through those pragmatist, activist, reflective theorists, you may think about yourself and other people that you work with and start to identify people that come to mind. But now let's think about it in the workplace and the types of jobs that each of those four might do. So pragmatists, they may be a construction worker, maybe more of a salesperson or a chef, okay? Again, these are a lot of generalizations. I just want you to understand some of the key distinctions, okay? An activist, maybe someone's more of a solicitor, a barrister, or a judge, politician, police officer, somebody that definitely has a strong opinion. Okay, reflector, they're definitely going to be someone's a planner, maybe project manager, academic, researcher, admin person, bookkeeper, teacher. Okay, a theorist, maybe someone's a scientist, architect, designer, accountant. Okay, theorists are very much definitely about right or wrong. Okay, engineer, compliance officer, or even again a teacher, depending on the subject. Okay. Now, how plays out in the classroom, because this is the most important aspect, right? We want to start to understand how do each of these people or how do each of these behaviors show up, so to speak, okay? So you're going to find that a pragmatist, they're going to generally answer questions quickly. They're going to be keen to help, and they're going to finish activities or tasks first, okay? So this is how that type may show up. And also as a key clue on how to spot a pragmatist, an activist, or reflective theorist, right? So as we go through this, you'll start to identify how you can spot them. Now, activists, they may ask challenging questions. They may play devil's advocate for different information. They may want to do things their own way, okay? Now, we have we've got that, see that, all right. Okay, then we've got a reflector. Now, they are a little bit quieter. They will generally finish tasks slowest, and they will need time and space to process information, okay? They've got strong self-doubt. You may need to really reaffirm them. Okay. Now, a theorist, they will be very particular about the credibility of information, and they will want to know the theory and history behind the information you provide. So it's really important you provide references at the end of any presentation, or allow them or tell them where they can go and find extra information. They will have a strong desire to get it right. They are really focused on accuracy. Okay. Now, let's go even further. Okay, so a reflector, if you ask them to be a volunteer too soon, they will probably freak out, have a little bit of a maybe an emotional discomfort, and they may even say to the trainer, "Could you come back to me?" Okay. Now, you definitely want to encourage your pragmatists to be your volunteers, and you'll be able to spot those pragmatists quite easily and always be coming back to those pragmatists to be your volunteers, okay? Now, activists, you can definitely get them to be group leaders and use that that desire that they have to be recognized and seen, and use them as group leaders, okay? Now, let's tackle the problems that can eventuate if you don't respect these things, okay? So let's imagine you have a pair activity and you put two pragmatists together, okay? Now, knowing the definition and how pragmatists show up, hopefully you can now appreciate that two pragmatists together are typically going to battle for leadership, so to speak. The two pragmatists are going to want to take the lead, but not allow either of the person to take the lead, so to speak, okay? And they may get a little bit frustrated. Putting two activists together, that may encourage or maybe create a situation where there's actually maybe conflict, and two learners may actually argue or debate each other around the topic, or they may even say, why are we even bothering to do this, okay? R and R is two reflectors. Now, as I said, reflectors love to watch other people do things, and they like to take their time. So you may find that two reflectors don't really do much at all because they're waiting for somebody else to take the initiative. Okay, and they're a little bit unsure as to what should they do, and they love to watch other people in order to get a sense of what are the correct expectations. Now, a theorist and a theorist, if you put those together, you may get two theorists that argue over the validity of the information, the validity of the activity. They may want to make sure that they're doing it 100%, getting it just right, okay? So if we're not aware of these personality behaviors, so to speak, we can end up setting up combinations that actually don't lead to a good learning outcome. So I really want to encourage you to start to be able to identify who are the pragmatists, the activists, the reflectors, and theorists in your training group. And the faster you can do that, the more accurately or efficiently you'll be able to pair people together. Now, what resonates most with each part or behavior while learning? So pragmatists, they love activities in which they can jump in and apply what they've learned as quick as possible. They love case studies, they love problem solving, they love practical activities and discussions, all right? Now, activists, they love fault-finding activities, okay? That's basically where you set up a video and people find the problems in the video, or Another way to put it is they love to watch mistakes by other people and find those mistakes. All right, a great learning activity. Brainstorming, activists love that. Problem solving, activists love that. All right, group discussions, class debates. Puzzles, competitions, role plays, all in the field of what the activist absolutely loves. Okay. Reflector, they love paired discussions, self-analysis questionnaires, personality questionnaires, timeouts, so self-reflection time, observation activities, coaching, case studies, and again, reflection activities. All right, really important that you allow the reflectors time to sit there and just reflect on what they've done. All right, theorists, they love to work with models and flow charts, diagrams, statistics, stories, quotes, background information, and examples of applying theories in the real world. Okay, really, really important. Okay, you've definitely got to give the theorist, how do I put this, access to knowledge outside the session that you're presenting. Okay, now all I want to do is just run you through a scenario, building a bridge. Okay? Because what we still need to remember is that everyone is perfect and beautiful and valuable, and we need all 4 personality behavior types. Okay, so building a bridge. So who would we want digging the holes? Okay, who would we want putting together the scaffolding and laying the bricks? We definitely want the pragmatist doing that. Okay, who would we want, let's say, arguing at the council for putting in the bridge? Well, we definitely want the activists doing that because they would be able to come up with their logic and come up with their arguments. Definitely want the activists to be doing that. Who would we want traveling around the world and looking at different other bridges and looking at how other people have built those bridges and coming up with maybe recommendations for best practice? We definitely want the reflector doing that. And then last of all, we've got the person designing it. Who would we want designing it? Well, we definitely want the theorist designing the bridge, okay? So I just wanted to lay those 4 out for you in the context of building a bridge so that we remember that every one of those is perfect and beautiful, and we need them in the learning environment. But if we're not aware of those 4 learning behavior types, can you all appreciate how you may actually take offense to one of those types or even may get frustrated by them? Maybe you get frustrated by the pragmatist that jumps in and does it too quick, doesn't plan too much, okay? But maybe you get frustrated by the activist who's asking challenging questions. Maybe you get frustrated by the reflector who takes a little bit longer than other people. I'll tell you now, reflectors get frustrated by pragmatists. Pragmatists get frustrated by reflectors. Okay, it's just how it plays out because one finishes before the other, one takes longer. That's okay. All right. Theorist. Do you get frustrated by people that read through your materials and constantly find typos or maybe they're very adamant about the sources and credibility of the information? Okay. Just be okay that they are a theorist. Everybody is perfect and beautiful. And it is so valuable when we can work with those 4 different types. Okay. So just to close off this section, everybody is perfect and beautiful and valuable, and we need everybody. Okay. Also, sometimes as a trainer, well, actually, no, I'm going to say all the time, we need to be able to step into a pragmatist. We need to step into an activist. We need to step into a reflector and a theorist as we train as well, because that then allows us to cater towards those 4 needs as well. Okay. But key thing to take away from this section also is know that when you can identify those behavioral attributes, you can use that to your advantage. As I said earlier, get those pragmatists as your volunteers. Use the activists to, challenge different concepts or whatever it might be. Use the reflectors you know, as people that may do the research, use the theorists to actually find the credibility in what you're sharing. And, you know, you can use all these types to really get even more great content coming alive. Okay. So in today's webinar, we've covered so many different things. And as I said, even just implementing one of these major topics that we've talked about, you will see guaranteed a great result and a great shift in your training delivery or the training results that you get, okay? And it's all about feeding people's needs so they feel engaged, cared about, respected, and they want to keep coming back because they know that you as a trainer and you as an RTO care more and really want the best for them. So in today's session, we've covered reason people to get disengaged or disruptive and how to really handle that. Team developmental stages. Number 3, setting people up for success on their training journey. Your students' core needs, dealing with disruptive behavior, and using learning personality types to your advantage, okay? So, your biggest takeaway, okay? I really want to encourage you now going forward, what's going to be the biggest thing that you're going to run with straight away on your next session? What's one new thing that you're going to implement? Okay. And I also encourage you, watch this webinar a number of times and really, as much as possible, unpack each of the concepts even deeper as you watch it. Okay. And start to ask yourself the question, how could I apply that in my session? How could I apply that in my session? All right. So on behalf of Success Training Academy, we just want to say a huge thank you. And if you have any further information about other courses or assessment support, please email us at info@successtrainingacademy.com.au or visit our website, and we would love to help you and support you on your learning journey going forward. All right. So thank you so much. And we wish you the very best as you continue training and helping your students.